I'm really excited about this trip.
So am I. I wonder what it was like back in 1897.
I don't know.
Maxwell Becton and Fairleigh Dickinson were two young salesmen who met in 1897 while traveling by train. The company they started that year would soon make a name for itself, selling medical products of the finest quality. Becton Dickinson's early products included a glass mercury thermometer, hypodermic needles, and syringes. The Canadian National Railway started connecting the entire nation. When a bicycle repairman from Sherbrooke built Canada's first gasoline-powered car, people really started to go places. Canada Dry Ginger Ale was patented with a recipe that remains a secret to this day. In Newfoundland, an Italian inventor named Guglielmo Marconi received the first transatlantic wireless message. As movie theaters opened across the country, the great train robbery ushered in the golden age of motion pictures. Immigration to Canada reached an all-time high in 1913 with more than 400,000 new arrivals. The Great War dominated world news, and Becton Dickinson supplied Allied forces with medical supplies, including the Asepto bulb syringe and the Ace brand all-cotton elastic bandage. The Canadian government introduced something called income tax and stopped wartime production of liquor. But there was some good news as teams from Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa formed the National Hockey League. In the years after the war, the world celebrated with gaiety and glamour. Dance innovations like the Charleston, the Black Bottom, and the heebie-jeebies gave rise to the Jazz Age. Henry Ford made motor cars affordable for ordinary people with his Tin Lizzie. A visit to the cinema became a weekly jaunt to see stars like Charlie Chaplin in full-length silent pictures. Talkies arrived in 1927, and a cartoon mouse named Mickey made his debut. Suffering during the war had inspired doctors and scientists to work hard at finding cures for diseases. Two Canadian scientists, Banting and Best, answered the challenge by showing that insulin could control diabetes. A Chicago pharmacist named Doc Fleischer joined BD, spending his career developing and refining new medical instruments like the modern stethoscope. Fairleigh Dickinson patented the Luer lock tip, an innovation that securely attached a hypodermic needle to a syringe. Then, the roaring 20s roared to a close with the stock market crash of 1929. The world's economy was in ruins, and millions of people were out of work during the Great Depression. But as the decade progressed, hope was renewed. Lavish musicals kept people's minds off their troubles, with stars like Fred Astaire and Shirley Temple doing their best to cheer people up. There were notable advances in science, medicine, industry, and transportation. The Trans-Canada telephone system helped people stay in touch, and the Canadian broadcasting system kept them informed. Electricity was used on an increasingly large scale. New materials like aluminum, polyethylene, nylon, and synthetic rubber were produced. Vitamins were discovered and isolated. Breakthroughs like sulfa drugs and the polio vaccine promised to save millions of lives. Another medical advance marked the beginning of BD's leadership in diabetes care, as self-injection was prescribed for people with diabetes. In 1937, Henry P. Becton joined his father's company. The 40s were a time of high hopes and terrible fears as World War II raged. BD was again asked to supply medical products to the armed forces. After the war, the company patented a new concept, the vacutainer, that allowed blood to be drawn by vacuum through a needle into a test tube. The electronic digital computer, LP recordings, and vinyl records all made their debut. A Toronto firm, Avro, built the first commercial jet in North America. Dramatic change in living standards brought undreamed of prosperity to North America and Europe by the end of the 1950s. Science saw some of its greatest advances, especially in communications and electronics. Sports became universally popular and increasingly professional. Filmmaking became an international industry, with musicals livelier than ever, and stars like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe causing hearts to beat faster.
Quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Ah, yes, and then there was rock and roll. Starting with the 1955 release of Bill Haley's Shake, Rattle, and Roll and Rock Around the Clock, this dynamic new kind of music took the West by storm. Elvis Presley started teenagers swooning with Heartbreak Hotel and a string of other hits. And a little boy from Ottawa named Paul Anka sold his first million with a tribute to Diana. BD did some rocking of its own, dancing onto the international scene with the formation of Becton Dickinson Canada Limited. BD manufactured the first sterile disposable blood collection set for sale to the American Red Cross. And acquisitions moved the company into the field of diagnostics medicine. The 60s saw dramatic changes as the youth revolution turned clothing styles, music, and even value systems topsy-turvy. From the Beatles to the Beach Boys, pop records sold by the millions. The growing popularity of TV helped turn sports stars into international idols. The Montreal Canadiens won their 5th Stanley Cup. And needing capital to introduce sterile disposable needles and syringes, BD became a publicly held corporation. The rapid progress of science and technology continued as the frontier of space was explored. Computers became common, and the world's first heart transplant took place. In the 70s, BD introduced its disposable insulin syringe for home injections and patented the pre-filled heparin syringe. 12 million calculators found their way into pockets the first year they were introduced. A Russian dancer named Mikhail Baryshnikov leaped into a nation's heart when he defected in Toronto. And an animal known for hard work became Canada's official symbol. At the Montreal Olympics, a young Romanian gymnast named Nadia Comaneci captivated the world, scoring perfect tens and winning 3 gold medals. As Canadian road signs went metric, the Toronto Blue Jays won the first game of a new baseball franchise. An altogether different game called Trivial Pursuit was invented by 2 young Canadians who made their first sales calls traveling on the newly formed Via Rail. The 80s opened with a new official anthem for the nation, O Canada. Brantford native Wayne Gretzky scored a record 164 points in his 2nd season of professional hockey. 700 million people watched Charles and Diana say, I do. Although, as it turned out, they didn't for long. England also saw expansion by BD, as did Spain, Japan, and Singapore. International growth continued into the 90s as BD opened a distribution center in Belgium. A joint venture with Baxter kicked off sales of the innovative Interlink needleless access system. Another joint venture initiating marketing and distribution of GlucoWatch, a painless, continuous glucose monitoring device for people with diabetes. As Canadian scientists discovered fossils of the oldest known multicellular animals, astronomers looked in other directions to view the most distant object ever seen, the quasar. Pro basketball brought Canadians to the courts, and Ottawa-born Alanis Morissette brought music fans to their feet, winning 4 Grammy Awards. The past 100 years have been a glorious journey for Becton Dickinson, but we have our sights set on an even more exciting future. Look around, and you'll see the faces of that future. Faces that promise a future full of enthusiasm, vigor, hope, and success. Faces that tell the story of the Becton Dickinson yet to be.
You know, the future of Becton Dickinson is very interesting. With the changing healthcare system in Canada, with the freedom we have to try new things, the future is almost unlimited. There's going to be a lot of things develop, and if we get close to them and understand them, we're going to find new opportunities, and we're going to be able to build a great company in the future.
I think that BD has a great future and will be well positioned to meet the challenges of the next century.
In the next century, with the vision of the organization, I see BD being more in an automated type environment in hospitals and all our customers, and being involved with people and patients outside the hospitals and in their homes, and being a very empathetic and helpful organization to everyone around the world.
In the next century, hopefully BD will be involved in a lot more problem solving for our customers, as well as I guess the patients that our products are being used on, so that I guess we're helping people live better lives, you know, involved in research that's going to either make people more mobile or potentially cure their disease or problem.
In the next century, I'd like to see Becton Dickinson as an organization being known as a company that has made a contribution to individuals around the world living healthy lives.
I work in the warehouse area in customs and traffic, and I see in the future that we'll be completely computerized, and everything will be to the benefit of our customers. We'll get all information to them, you know, quicker, and the trucking companies, it would be a better way of dealing with them.
I'd say a BD in the future is going to be both challenging and fun at the same time.